Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. We've got a fun show planned today. We're doing our mock draft 2.0. We both come in with a couple rules. I think I made the rules this time, Keith. I'm sure you'll double check me, but
did you break them?
I ended up with two trades to end up at 25 in the draft. So I traded back. This was our trade back kind of mock. So I traded back twice to get to 25 and made my pick. And then you traded back to 29 and made your pick first. And then I had a second trade that we said that we would allow in the draft, and that was in the second round. So all in all, fun exercise, lots of players to talk about. How you doing?
Doing good. I ended up with three trades. I traded back twice at the top, which is what we said we could do, and then we said a third if it helped us get to 10 picks. So I needed to do that. I also ended up with 3 picks in next year's draft in the process of all of this, which nice. I kind of like. But overall, yeah, you got a lot more picks in the top 100 than I do. So you're going to be talking a lot here at the beginning.
I don't know how I did it, and we'll try to figure it out. I was looking at it right before we pushed record, and I couldn't quite put the math together. But I ended up with 10 picks as well.
You didn't move down as far.
I think I traded a future second, and it didn't show in when I finished. It didn't when it put the trades together. It didn't show that trade because something's not right here. But let's talk about it. So I ended up picking at 25, and to get there, I traded with Pittsburgh to pick 20, and I received and also sent them pick 118 overall. Picked up their pick number 20 and number 51 and 98. And I think in order to do that, I sent a future second round pick to get 51 and to get to 51 in particular. And then I had 98 as well. So let's just say I did that for sure. And with my 25th pick overall, after a lot of deliberation, man, I mean, I just really weighed this back and forth because there's a few different players that I wanted to select. Well, let me tell you this. I traded with Green Bay from 20 to 25. Also gave them pick 98, pick 102, and I picked up 58 and 88. And that's how I got to 25. I selected Jackson Powers Johnson with that pick, and I've kind of avoided him over the last month in my mocks, mostly because I thought Oluwatimi is going to be our center. I'm fine with that. But the more I thought about Jackson Powers Johnson is he's not just a center. He can play guard. And I was thinking, okay, I've got my center. Jackson Powers Johnson gives me some versatility in the interior offensive line, but he can play left guard. And so I'm going to have him come in and play left guard on this team. 6'3", 334 pounds, just a kind of a bruiser and a mauler mentality, which is kind of what you want at guard.
Dominated the Senior Bowl.
Dominated, yeah. Everything about him is just really kind of, best center in the draft. But if you move him to guard, he's at least top 3, and maybe even the first guard, depending on what happens to a couple of different players. But I really like that. It kind of solidifies the interior trenches, which is what I wanted to do in this draft. I think if I was going to move back and move off blue chip potential at 16, somebody that fell or whatever, if I was going to give that up and kind of trade into the equal value zone anywhere between picks 20 and say 40 are kind of squishy as far as a So, Keith, are you still with me?
I
Okay.
am.
So you picked next at 29. How did you get there?
So I traded pick 16 to Pittsburgh to pick 20, got pick 84, around 4 and around 6 in the following year. So I kind of wanted to get in around 2 there, but I went ahead and took the move to 84, or picking up pick 84, knowing that I was getting a couple picks next year. I figured that would help me out, and if I needed to, I'd trade them. And then I went from 20 down to 29 with Detroit. And with that, I got pick 61, which got me into the second round and a third round pick in next year. So I ended up with those 2 picks, 2 trade downs. I got a second round pick, a third round pick, and then 3 picks in next year's draft as well. So I felt pretty good about the way that worked out. And then at 29, I also went offensive line, and I took Troy Fontenot out of Washington.
Wow.
He's a tackle, a really good one too.
How did you get him to fall in your draft?
I have no idea, but
that's a crazy draft.
But I'm not complaining. He's a guy that some people have viewed as a guy that's they're going to move him into guard. His footwork
prior to the combine.
It was prior to the combine when his arm length came out longer than people thought it would, showing that he had the length to stay out at tackle. I draft him with the idea that he's going to be one, my left guard for this first year, and 2, if Abe Lucas's knee isn't ready, we've got a right tackle.
Or if Charles Cross doesn't develop the way you want him to, and he's just the better left tackle option as Charles Cross's contract runs out.
That was the other thing, is because we're 2 years offset from when the tackles came in, and I don't think you're paying both of them, even if they do, continue to, like, if they both develop and look good. It's really hard to pay that much for 2 tackles, and so you can let one of them go or trade one of them, and you've got Fontenot ready to slide in and take that spot. So it was one of those moves that worked for now at the guard spot and really made this line significantly better, but also offered so much versatility going forward with injury and with just other concerns. Like, it just made a lot of sense for the Seahawks to draft him.
Love that, really. There are a lot of mocks that I do where I try to get into the 50s somewhere. So I try to get a pick in the 50s because there's a lot of players there that I like.
There is.
In this draft. And so I like, whether I get there directly by trading back and somebody gives me a mid-second round pick, or if I accumulate enough draft capital where I can move back up into it. It's kind of a fun area to be. And I would imagine John Schneider's going to try like heck to get into this zone of the draft. So I got into pick 52. So second round, pick 52 is my next pick. And I received that from Los Angeles. So I traded out a pick. I originally had pick 51, traded to pick 52 because Los Angeles was going to give me 83 and 99 to do that.
That's
I don't.
That's insane.
I know. So I took the trade. It's not going to happen in the draft. I might get one. So I might get the 83 or the 99.
Usually it would be the 99.
To that,
if you're going to move down one spot like that, they'll typically throw you a 4th round pick.
Yes. Yes.
But right. Not a 3rd and a 4th.
This would be similar range that we took DK Metcalf and, whatever we got for DK Metcalf in compensation to move around a little bit. Or we came up and got him, I think, right?
Mm-hmm, we did.
So with that said, I know I got a little bit more than I bargained for. Trevondre Sweat, out of Texas, my nose tackle of my dreams, and the guy I've wanted on the roster for 5 consecutive years is now on the roster for me. 6'4", 366 pounds. Basically, it's just a 2-gap nose tackle with some upside on agility and penetration, even at that size. But let's be honest, he's going to be a 2-down player in the league. He's going to stuff the run, and he's going to take up double teams. And anything extra you get out of him, that's great. But I think what this position does is along with Jonathan Hankins, is it really helps you anchor this defense with a couple of players that offer you the ability to kind of take up double teams, which we haven't been able to do consistently. So now everyone else around him is going to be better. Jerron Reed's going to be better. The entire roster, all our edge rushers, all that stuff. These guys really do a great job at occupying space, and so that's kind of what we needed in this defense, and what we've been missing, at least in my opinion. And this guy does it.
Yeah. So I moved back off 61 that I got from the Lions to 64.
And I've got 58 next.
Oh, yeah. So I moved back to 64 and got a 5th round pick because I knew the team didn't have one there, and ended up getting the same guy. Is the only reason why I'm bringing this up, because I know we're out of order.
Oh, wow.
But at 64, I got Tavondre Sweat.
Nice.
With the
He's
idea
always
that
off my board by then.
Yeah, it was unexpected. And for him to have fallen that far, I was like, okay. But what happened?
2 players that, yeah.
Yeah. So what happened is I was sitting there at 61 with a couple of different guys that I was looking at. I'm like, I will take either of these. And I'm going to scroll down here and remind myself who the other one was. Yeah, because there's Sweat, and then the other one was man, I'm like not even seeing them.
Like Edgerrin Cooper or Zach Frazier or Peyton Wilson, Tyler Nubin, Cooper Beebe. Those guys usually hang around those areas. Junior Colston, that was who it was. And so, yeah, so I was looking at those two, and I'm like, I want one of those two. I'm at 61. I don't care which one. I just want one of them. So that's why I took the trade and moved down, and getting that 5th round pick was nice, because that's just a big gap that the Seahawks have in their draft order. So, but overall, I mean, it was about getting, like, I wanted Tavondre Sweat, because I agree with you. Like, he instantly is the best nose tackle on this team. I know that they signed Hankins, but he has not been as good the last 2 or 3 years as he was earlier in his career. Gattel is roster filler at the position, and Cameron Young is developing. I liked what we saw a little bit from him at the end of the season, but it wasn't enough. And he's still growing into that body and trying to put on the weight to get to a position where he can be a nose tackle. So this guy's an instant upgrade. He's the best of the 4, and now you can take your pick and let, whether it be Hankins or Gattel, one of those guys won't make the roster. Yeah, well, I think Hankins stays around, because what a great teacher to have for a Tavondre Sweat to come in and be behind Hankins at first, and
Cameron Young.
He just kind of takes over. Yeah, I like that. So with my 58, I had my sights on Edgerrin Cooper, the middle linebacker, and missed out on him. And so I went best player available, which kind of surprised me a little bit in the direction that I went. Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver out of Florida. I just really like him. He's only 193 pounds, so he's a little lean, but the upside is undeniable. 4'4", 140, 6'1", 189, I guess, and just has a lot of upside. Short shuttle was elite. 3-cone was elite. Vertical at 42 inches. The guy's really polished route runner, and really shined at the Senior Bowl. You listen to the way Jim Nagy talked about Ricky Pearsall. Thought he was going to be one of the best wide receivers when it was all said and done out of the draft, and I agree. And this, and the wide receiver room, the way it's constructed now, we talked about this yesterday when we were on. how stacked it is at the wide receiver spot. But you take a look at Tyler Lockett's contract situation and just where he's at, and it looks like, maybe this is his last year potentially. And you got a guy that backfills this roster a little bit, gives you some positional flexibility as you go forward. Maybe not this year. He kind of works in, but next year you're ready to go. And so that's what this is.
Yeah, I like that pick. And it gives them a chance to develop, because a lot of rookie wide receivers don't put up the numbers that you expect as a rookie, but then they kind of, break out in year two. And so giving him a year of development, and then he can break out in year two, when the team needs him to, and continue having that trio of great wide receivers on the roster. I like that pick.
So my next one is 81. Yours is too, and then you have 84. I have 83. I also have 88. So my strategy here, having 3 picks in the 80s. I know, Keith. I know. My pick with 3 picks in the 80s here was to just try to take the best players available, knowing that I've got other ammunition in this range. I'm going to have really my pick of the lot. So for me at 81, Keith, I went with Jatavian Sanders, the receiving tight end out of Texas, projected to be either the second or third best tight end in this class. And I didn't expect to take him. I had my eyes on some blocking tight ends later on, and just thought that would kind of be my strategy. And then I got into this spot in the draft, and I was like, this pick actually makes a lot of sense. We need some help on the roster. Currently, we have Noah Fant and Farrell Brown, and that's really it. And if Fant for some reason is hurt or injured, we don't really have another receiving tight end on the roster at all. And so I don't hate this pick. It's like, yeah, you might split some catches with Fant, but as time goes on, I think this guy becomes more integral into the offense, and we have 2 really nice weapons in the tight end room. Like which guy do you cover? Like if in a 2 tight end set, I think it presents mismatch opportunities for the offense, and so I like the pick.
Yeah, I mean, I like my tight ends that blocking a little better than that, but honestly,
yeah, me too.
The team did, they had Parkinson the last few years, who tried as a blocker, but overall was kind of ineffective. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you got to have those targets, especially in the red zone. You need those bigger guys, and he's a weapon. So I like that.
So you're next at 80.
At 81, I went with
at 81.
A guy that no one, if they've listened to the last few shows, will be surprised. I went with safety Javon Bullard out of Georgia. My favorite safety prospect in this draft. He's a guy that can come up, play the run. He can be the deep third. He can cover in the slot. He's super versatile, and has the speed to do any of those things. The size. I'm surprised he was there at 81. Usually I see him go in the late 60s, early 70s.
He went 82 in my draft.
Yeah, so for him to drop that far, I was like, I'll take it. I think he's an instant, contributor on the back end. He's basically a younger Julian Love in terms of his versatility, and I think he's going to be a fantastic player at the next level. So that was a no-brainer.
I agree. Okay, so at 83 or at 84. So right there in my draft, I did Jatavian Sanders at 81. Javon Bullard came off at 82. And at 83, earlier I had mentioned I was trying to get a linebacker and just missed. And this time, my second favorite linebacker in the draft, probably a better scheme fit on the Seahawks roster, considering the direction that they're moving, is Jeremiah Trotter from Clemson. Best coverage linebacker in this draft. good fluidity, moves around second level, really nice, works through trash to kind of get to the ball carriers. Really
Smart.
good run fits, super smart, very good football IQ.
Yeah.
Strong at both ends. A+ blitzer, like totally can tackle in the open field. Good all around. I think he's probably my second ranked linebacker maybe my third if you look at Peyton Wilson, but for the Seahawks, I think he's maybe a number one kind of target in this draft, and could be available with their third round pick there in the at 81 or 83. I can't remember where they're drafting, but Jeremiah Trotter.
See, I have the same player at 84. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And I think he's a little small. He's a little undersized. He'll need to play of the two middle linebacker spots. He'll need to be on the weak side, but the kid can play. He's a football player, and being a little undersized, I'm not that worried about, because I think that he'll continue to bulk up in the pros. He's got just tremendous football IQ and is excellent in coverage, which look what the Seahawks did in free agency. They basically got rid of a couple of guys that were good run stuffers and went for linebackers that were better in coverage. And so I just thought it was a kind of a no-brainer fit as far as scheme goes. So yeah, same player, 80 at 84. So you got the next one at 88, I think.
Yeah, this starts to get crazy for me. Okay, so I never ever considered this player until this moment in the draft, and I was really honestly just looking best player available. I had some options like Brandon Delorse, the edge from Oregon, Cameron Kitchens, the safety, Bo Limmer. I think one of the most underrated kind of move in space centers in this draft. Brendan Rice, Gabriel Murphy that the Seahawks have been looking at, had in for a 30 visit. Those guys were all sitting there, McKay Wingo. But I went with a guy that I thought, we really don't have a lot of tackles on this roster beyond our starters. And George Fant come in, for a couple of seasons, maybe. So I drafted Kieran Amagaji, the offensive tackle out of Yale. And before I pushed a draft, I went and looked him up and to see what he was all about. And 6'5", 323 pounds, explosive off the ball, really gets to, his spots really easily, good core strength and functional strength, which you don't find sometimes a lot at this level of the draft. Guys that start to fall at this range need something, and it's usually because they're not strong enough. They need to work on their core, and he's already got that. In a strong tackle class, the more I thought about it, I just wanted one. I just wanted to go get one, and at this spot in the draft, I think he's a really good value.
Yeah, he would in a typical draft, he would go significantly higher, but there's just so many good tackles that he's gonna fall. And I like that pick. So it seems at this point a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but has the physical school tools and the foot speed to become a good pass blocker. So he just needs some development time.
Yep. Perfect. And he will get it on this roster. He doesn't have to come in right away.
So my next pick is 102. Where's yours?
99. So I just beat you.
Your turn again.
So again, I was operating under the assumption of best player available. I'd already drafted my tight end, so Theo Johnson was sitting there. Javian Cohen, an interior offensive lineman, was sitting there. I would have considered him as well, but I went running back, and as to no surprise to Keith, this guy was sitting there at 99. I was like, this is one of the best running backs in the draft. And quite frankly, a team really likes to go into the season with 4 good quality running backs, and we really only have 3. And it wouldn't shock me if we come out of this draft with a running back and being almost at the fourth round at this spot. This is a good spot to pick up a nice value at running back and maybe a guy that could really have some upside for you. And Jalen Wright, the running back out of Tennessee, does that. 5'10", 210 pounds, above average footwork, really nice in space, good burst and acceleration, elusiveness, balance, agility, all that kind of stuff, quickness, being able to receive the ball out of the backfield. So this is the part where it gets really interesting for me because TJ Dallas is on the roster. Of course, we've got Kenny McIntosh, but Dallas gone now. Jalen Wright comes in, has the potential to compete with Kenny McIntosh for those receiving out of the backfield options for the team. So I like the pick.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of Seahawks fans are going to roll their eyes at another running back, but considering where you drafted him and the type of player, I think that's a good fit, good value. And because of the way your draft worked out with getting just way too many picks in the top
Yes.
100, you were able to fill out your draft before you took the running back. So it doesn't feel like oh my God, you took another second round pick, which you didn't. You took
And my
third,
next pick is 179, so I had a big gap.
Oh, you got a big gap here. So I'm going to be talking for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next pick is pick 102. I went with tight end Cade Stover. Other than the guy at the top of the draft, this is my number 2. He's not Brock Bowers, but I don't care. He's like just because he's
toolsy. He's does it all.
Toolsy. He's physical. He blocks well. He moves well. He has a decent route tree for a tight end. Really nice hands. Like just does everything well. Is he special like a Brock Bowers? Probably not. But those guys are once every 4 or 5 years type of guy, and I'm also not selecting a tight end in the top 10. So I'll take him. And like I said, I think he's the second best tight end in the draft. So overall, like just adding a guy that can come in and add to that room and just be a guy that can, just be an instant contributor, and to do that outside of the top 100 picks. Okay, it's only 102. Still is seems like a nice get for Seattle.
Yeah, no, he's certainly a guy that I mocked to Seattle quite a bit. In fact, the mock that I was considering doing prior to the one that I did choose, he was my guy. He was my tight end target, and I really like him. I think that he would be sure and steady. Definitely make the roster. He'd probably be the number 1 blocking tight end on the roster in his first season. Trying to figure that out with Pharaoh Brown, but Pharaoh Brown's not a long-term solution. Cade Stover would be. So nice pick.
Yeah. So, and then you've got a gap. So, the next pick for me, was 118. And I went with a safety, even though I'd already got one. And this was simply at this point in the draft, I was literally just best player available at every pick, and just being like, okay, who's the best player on the board? And yeah, I know it's a double up with Javon Bullard, but Dadrian Taylor Demerson out of Texas Tech was the best player on the board. He's 5'10", 197. Runs well. With a 4.4 140, and this guy is just pure versatility, which I know that Bullard's kind of in the same. Yeah, but he's a guy that can cover in the slot for you. He can come up and make tackles. He's a good, solid tackler in the box. He can be your deep, center fielder guy. He can literally do everything.
And he's super aggressive and tough and like gritty, and he's the kind of player you love to have on your roster.
Yeah.
Really?
And he's going to be a force on special teams if he ends up not pushing one of the starters out of the way just yet, and ends up as because he's going to be probably the 4th safety, which is weird to think, but he's a guy that has a high quality starter like in him.
Julian Love's only under contract for this season and next. And
Yeah.
I think that this is a guy that's kind of toolsy enough where, the versatility to be successful in multiple coverage of schemes, and highly instinctive, and really kind of confident, intelligent, but aggressive. Like he's going to even have to tone it down a little bit, I think, in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of a player. And I love that pick. I do. I mean,
Great ball
that's
skills.
great value.
Great ball skills. Good at creating turnovers and stuff. So, yeah. And then at 1:59, I think I'm still on the clock before you go, right?
Yes, sir.
I finally went running back.
Nice.
And I went with Will Shipley out of Clemson. He is, he's got a 4.39 40, which is crazy. He's only 21. He's young, but 5'11", 206, and is a guy that just kind of does a lot of good things well. I think I kind of thought of him more like a DJ Dallas, and a guy that can do a lot of everything, can run between the tackles, can get outside because he's got the speed too. He's a work in progress as a pass blocker simply because they didn't have him do that very often in college, but just a general good at everything type of running back. And at this spot to fill out that room, in case McIntosh isn't what you think he is, Bill, then yeah, I think it seemed like a no-brainer to get one in this draft, and for him to fall far enough that I felt comfortable, taking him as far as value goes, made a lot of sense.
Nice. Why don't you continue? You've got the same pick I do at 179, and you might as well just finish it off.
Okay, so I went with an edge rusher here, and again, this is just the Seahawks don't need one, but I went with best player available, and went with Nelson Caesar out of Houston.
And he went 130, 132 in my mock.
He did.
Yeah, way earlier than that. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Because he's kind of in that range where I don't tend to look for him because he tends to come off the board in an area where the Seahawks don't have a pick. For him to be there was very unexpected. So we're talking he's an outside linebacker in this scheme, 6'3", 254, so he's got good size. His 40 time is slow at 4.89, which means he's probably a pass rusher, a specialist, a guy that will come up and do some things for you in as a pass rusher, as a situational player, and not be as a starter, because he's not going to turn and run with tight ends in this league. But he gets around the corner well. He's got that good bend around the corner. But he's super quick on the line of scrimmage. Just that first step, violent hands to keep the tackle's hands off of him. He gets around the corner really well. It's just a guy that, because of his lack of speed, he's got a limited role. He's basically Darrell Taylor again. Although I think he'll be a better run stuffer in terms of being able to set the edge and those kind of things. But he's not going to be the guy that drops back, and that's why he dropped in this draft, I believe. But I like him as a guy that can come in and have a role. It's a designated role. He's a pass rusher. That's all he does. And you turn him loose.
Nice. I like it. At that point in the draft, you're looking for guys that can also do, special teams. And he would be definitely a big special teams contributor. A guy like that's good to have. So I doubled up on a position that I seem to want to solve really badly, and that's defensive tackle. So at 179, I went with Christian Boyd, Northern Iowa, as another nose tackle, defensive tackle option. This guy's got a little bit more upside as far as being able to get to the quarterback and disrupt the pocket. He's 320 pounds, really strong. I think one of the strongest players in the draft. Good read and react, good get off, on the ball. His power rush, his bull rush is like top of the class, like really, really nice bull rush. Hand usage, run support, all that stuff. These are all qualities that he can bring to the table. He was a 30 prospect visit for Seattle. So I think, they're looking at him. So I think it'd be a good option for them at this range in the draft. And then my next pick was at 192. I think you're at 192 as well.
Yep. So go ahead.
So I got a quarterback. I wasn't expecting to, but Joe Milton was still sitting there from Tennessee at 192. And, his arm strength is on par with Josh Allen, but everything else is on par with a guy that goes undrafted. So you take a look at the upside of that, the arm, the physical size, the physical trait, 6'4", 242. He can run a bit. He's inconsistent with a bunch of things. He is consistent though in underneath stuff. If he doesn't drill you with the ball, like he needs to work on the touch. Everyone kind of knows that. He's high. He floats things up a little bit, and then of course you can take the deep shots all you want with this guy. How accurate is he going to be? Well, he's pretty accurate. He's mid-tier accurate, I would say. But the velocity, the arm strength, all that kind of stuff is top of class. But and then you're getting some athleticism, and he's not horrible like on mechanics and mobility and stuff. So there's some things to work on there. You're just taking a flyer. So that's kind of what this is at 192. I'm taking a flyer on a quarterback. Don't know what we've got necessarily with Sam Howell. So this is a guy that's, could potentially be a practice squad guy or a guy that you could have on your roster and carry a third quarterback. So anyway, that's just a shot.
Yeah. This is where we're at that stage in the draft where you're looking for guys that you're taking a shot on someone that you think, hey, if they develop, we might have something, because you're not getting guaranteed good players. There's no high floor left in this part of the draft. So yeah, this is where you take that quarterback with a massive arm, and you hope you can improve his mechanics enough to make his accuracy better. And if you do, now you got a big arm accurate quarterback. So yeah, why not? So I at the same exact spot went back to the offensive line. I did the first pick at 29 and then at 192. Finally came back to it and got a center out of Penn State, Hunter Norzad. This is a guy that I like. I like him, not just in this range, but just overall. He's 6'3", 317 with long arms. Just he's an athlete. He's got good movement skill as far as his ability to move laterally. He's quick. He's really smart. Does a lot of smart things with angles in terms of his blocking, and in order to get people moved laterally to create a hole, not just pushing people straight back, which I think is something that is underrated, especially since the Seahawks, I believe, are going to still be doing a lot of zone blocking, which is so that's basically what you're asking them to do. He's got good feet, good as a pass protector. He needs to add a little core strength, some functional strength, to stand up against the best nose tackles in the league. But he's big enough and strong enough that he has shown, especially playing at Penn State, that you put a big time nose tackle, at zero tech right on top of him, and he can hold his own. So, yeah, it's just
Nice.
one of those picks. I'm like, he comes in, instantly becomes the backup, and pushes Oluwatimi for a job.
Cool. Well, I've got the last pick in at 235. You've got that as well. Do you want me to go first or you?
Go ahead.
So I found my Kyle Hamilton at 235. He's going to play exactly like Kyle Hamilton and be an All-Pro immediately. Probably not. Okay, but this is one of my favorite players on this part of the draft. It wouldn't shock me if this guy goes into the 160, 175 range just because he's so toolsy. Talking about Tyler Owens from Texas Tech, 6'2", 216 pounds, ran a 4.3 flat, 4.3 40
Wow.
at 216 pounds. Dude jumped out of the gym at the combine with a 12-foot, 1-inch broad jump, 146 inches. Vertical's 41. The wingspan is 80 inches. So this guy's like a pterodactyl with power that you're going to bring into your defense. He's like he can play zone slot nickel coverage for you but he can also play in the box. And with that speed, he's not known for being kind of a free safety guy, rangy, but you can potentially teach that. He's got all the tools. He's got the agility. He's got the burst and all of that power. And you just kind of need to harness that a little bit and teach him up. So at that point in the draft, I just chose best player available and special teams ace. Like this guy is going to be the Mr. Special Teams on the Seahawks in 2024 if he's on the roster.
Again, like I said before earlier, you look for guys with high ceiling and hope you can coach them. And that's exactly what you've done there. That is a perfect 7th round pick. That's exactly the type of guy you're looking for.
Yeah, super athletic. I mean, it's hard to find super athletic players at that stage in the draft. And when you find one, you grab them. All right, what'd you do?
So I went wide receiver finally, looking for just an additional body to add to the room, someone that can play when Eskridge gets hurt after the first day of training camp. And went with a guy out of Southeast Missouri State, in Ryan Flournoy. He's 6'1", 198, or 196, and that will be the end of it because he's thin. He doesn't have the frame to put on much more, so he's always going to be on the slight side, but the guy's got long arms, plays physical in terms of his ability to catch the ball through contact, good lower body, and knows how to run once he's got the ball in his hands. He breaks tackles, and
I've got good news for you.
Buttery smooth hands. What?
At his pro day, he weighed in at 202.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But still, I still think that he's kind of topped out as far as his frame's ability. You look at him, he's thin, and so that's one of the things that's going to push him down. But often, like, he doesn't have burning speed, but they would use him on deep routes because if the ball's close, with his long arms, his ability to jump, and his sure hands, he can go up and win contested catch balls. And so he's got a limited route tree at this point. He needs to develop that and get better, so they can use him on more types of routes other than crossing routes and deep routes. But there's talent there. There's stuff to work with, and if nothing else, you've got a good special teams player your first year.
I've picked him a couple different times in mocks. I'm impressed with his bench. Like, he had 19 reps on the bench press. You mentioned he's kind of long and spindly. He, to do 19 reps, you got to be a strong dude, and almost 40 inches in the vertical.
Yeah.
You mentioned to be able to jump out of the gym. The broad jump was elite at 132. My guy I told you about was 146. This guy's a 132 and it's still 97 percentile. And so I like it as a guy that you can have on your roster just to develop, play some special teams for you, get behind Njigba, learn from him. They're kind of the same sort of receiver, if you will, guy that operates in space, yards after catch, moving the chains, possession style receiver, going to operate maybe out of the slot a little bit. But you mentioned he can challenge down the field. I agree with that because he can high point the ball. He's got good ball skills. So, I mean, at that point in the draft, woof.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to confuse him for Roma Duze, but we're talking about 7th round, right? So go get guys that can play, and hopefully you can develop them, and they, are better than their draft position suggests because they have the athleticism and things that you need, and so you can just teach.
Well, when you play at Southeast Missouri State, it's hard to know how you measure against other players. Now, I'm sure the guy, he did the Senior Bowl, he's going to find out where he's at there, but it's hard to measure that some of the time from smaller schools, the production and what you can do, and you get on a roster, sometimes you can surprise, and so that's great. I like it.
Yeah, and the fact that he went to the Senior Bowl and did pretty good there. So, that's always when you're looking at the small school guys, bowl games and Senior Bowl. Yeah, bowl games and Senior Bowl are where you get a good feel for can they play against the big boys, and I think he can. So that's why he was on my radar as a draft target in that range.
Nice. Yeah. I probably this wasn't as realistic as I wanted it to be. When we started talking about the rules of engagement on this draft, and we talked about the 2 trade backs, and we talked about maybe a third trade. Like my third trade, I ended up picking up 3 draft picks. In my second trade, I picked up 3 draft picks, and then a couple of futures even. And I just think that mine was a little unrealistic. I took what was offered just so that I could get into different ranges of the draft and so forth. But I wasn't anticipating it being so top heavy for me, where I ended up with 7 picks in the top 100, which is absurd. The most that we could potentially come out of this draft with is 5.
Yeah.
We've only got 2 right now. You'd have to trade away a future pick in order to get 5 picks in the top 100 because we just don't have enough draft capital. Even if you move back from 16 to 26 and you do that over 3 incremental moves, you're probably going to, at best, get 3rd round draft picks. You might be able to move back or 4th round. You might be able to move back up into the draft at some point and pick up an additional top 100 pick. But
yeah, I thought mine was more. I thought mine, as far as the trades, was more realistic. Given that they moved back all the way to 29, moved back 13 spots over 2 trades to get a 2nd and a 3rd. Now they also added 3 picks next year, which I'm not against. But yeah, to get the 3rd, 4th, and 6th round picks in next year's draft was a get. But yeah, I ended up with 10 players. I like my draft. I like the fact that the first 2 picks, the only 1st round and the only 2nd round pick, were both linemen. One offense, one defense, both very physical, big road, grader kind of super physical players. Before I went with, getting away from the line of scrimmage. So to me, that was important in this particular draft. It's important for the Seahawks to go get linemen.
It'd be a dream for the Seahawks to come away with Fantano and Sweat in the same draft, or Jackson, Powers, Johnson, and Sweat. I just think it's somewhat unrealistic. The Fantano, for example, at 29, that's just probably not going to happen. Sometimes he's not even there at 16 when I want to take him. And I think he's going to go in that range. I think somebody's going to, if Seattle trades back, they might be coming up to take him. Like he's that good. I think he's going to go in the top 20. And Jackson Powers Johnson, not sure if it's the scheme fit for Seattle, unless he does move to left guard. Maybe that's where the team sees a player like him. And then Javondre Sweat, I think he's going to go early. He's going to go too early for the Seahawks to have a shot.
I think he's going to. I think talent wise, getting him in the late 50s, early 60s, where you and I took him, is right. But because he's the only true nose tackle in the first 3 rounds, someone's going to be like, okay, if we miss out on him, we don't get a nose tackle this year. So they're going to draft him higher. He's probably going to go in the late 30s.
Early 2s. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, fun draft. We'll probably do one more before the actual draft. Draft's coming up. We're like this would be day 2 of the draft in 3 weeks. And so pretty exciting to get this close. I think we've got a couple of shows coming up, Keith, where we're going to take a look around the NFC West in one of our episodes, and we're going to have some more roster news. We'll do another podcast and whatever other ideas that we've got coming up. But it's fun to do these, because this is really the fun part of doing all of the work that we've done up till this point, and now we kind of just get to talk about it, get to talk about strategy. We'll do a NFL draft preview show, both offense and defense. We'll have a recap show after we're all said and done. So still a lot of great content, and I hope everyone sticks around for that for sure. Anything else, Keith?
No, let's go ahead and get going. This has been a fun show, but I feel like I've talked a lot. So,
well, it's your show too, man. You get to talk at least 50.1% of the time. Okay, so let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter. You can find him at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find it on your favorite podcast platforms and our YouTube channel, and hit that subscribe button when you do so. Until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.